different location, because we got to keep on trucking into section 9 of I never know where to look using this phone. I never know where to look. Um, Section 9 of Chapter 1 of Gunther Anders' essay, The World as Phantom and as Matrix. Now, Section 9, I wasn't very jazzed about Section 9 because, in many ways, it was simply recapitulating a lot of what we have already discussed, namely that there is an intimate relationship between the manner in which the world once transformed into a kind of matrix for commodity production. There's an intimate relationship between how that transformation is connected toward a banalization, sort of imparting of banality to almost everything and anything that we encounter, a kind of extinction or extinguishing of wonderment, um, and alienation. I put this down here to see, does that work? Sort of. I think it works. I don't know. The main thing is that you hear what I'm saying, not so much to what I see. That you see what I'm saying. But perhaps in a different sense, I do hope that you do see what I'm saying. um, anyway, get back on point, right? There are two main suggestions which Gunther Anders makes in section 9. The one is a recapitulation of how what he refers to as the banalization of the world serves a broad tendency towards alienation by camouflaging or concealing the reality of our alienated or estranged status with respect to the world. And this isn't very difficult to see how the comfortable aspects of reality which are forwarded and emphasized by media can put one at ease and perhaps even induce a suspicion that all this talk of alienation is misplaced ideological crankiness. Um, and insofar as that's the case, those interests which have a vested commitment to the processes which underwrite societal alienation are perfectly happy to see this banalization carry on and continue to put people at ease because it then mitigates the possibility of disruption. We've already more or less said that in previous videos. Is there a recapitulation and emphasis of that point? The second major point which Anders makes, though, is slightly different, though it too has been anticipated. And namely, and maybe before I do that, I should go over again this concept of the banalization of the world, the banalization, whatnot. What is going on here? It's the transformation of the world into something which is dishonestly familiar. It's taking things which actually involve extraordinary challenge and reframing them in a manner that makes them accessible or seemingly accessible. So you can, for example, just the example that comes to mind personally is mountain climbing, right? You can or just rock climbing in general. If you jump on to YouTube, whatnot, you can find scads of absolutely fantastic climbing videos, people doing extraordinary things, and they're sitting, for me anyway, they're quite stimulating to watch, or the documentaries um, on Netflix and so on and so forth. Um, Free Solo is probably the most famous one. There's another one, The Dawn Wall, And these are very good films. I'm not, but what's interesting is that you can watch Rocky on the other side of the another example is you can watch Rocky. These people are engaged in mortal struggles, and yet now we receive them as a kind of entertainment, which may in fact diffuse our appreciation of what's involved in undertaking these extraordinary things. And Rocky, obviously, a fictional example, right? Uh, Alex Honnold free soloing Yosemite, a real example, um, and so on and so forth. But these extraordinary undertakings become trivialized, really. And maybe trivialized is a better word than banalized. Though I understand why the translator chose that, because he wants to inflect the pejorative facet of with what we're dealing here. So to circle back to section 9, and the other thing that Gunther Anders wants to emphasize about the manner in which the banalization of the world is related to our alienation from it is how it distorts our relationship with space time, if you like. It has this remarkable media relay of the world, has this remarkable leveling impression, right? So that what is far becomes near, what is near actually becomes distant because we become displaced from the immediate by virtue of our fascination with the distant that is brought to us, right? Mount Everest is on our television screen, and as a consequence, we are no longer paying attention to the other people in the room. This is true psychologically, this is true spatially, this is true temporally. It also, as we've already noted, it more or less annihilates our, or greatly, or minimally mutilates our sense of the historical. So, this distortionary effect of banalization uh, for Anders points to the notion that alienation and banalization actually have a structural connection to one and the other. The process of alienation itself will necessarily demean the world, banalize, familiarize, trivialize the world in virtue of the distortion which that estrangement brings about. Now, I have to confess that while I see what he's saying, I'm not completely persuaded as to the tightness of the connection which he is advancing. I mean, I believe that the connection is there, but it may not be quite as almost mathematical as he seems to suggest. This, though, whether, is almost sort of aside from the point. All of this then leads up into section 10, and I might as well go ahead and discuss that too, because it's a brief and concluding section to the first chapter of The World as Phantom and as Matrix. And section 10, having sort of laid out the ground that through broadcast media, our relationship with the world becomes unilateral and passive as opposed to engaged, interactive, even dialectical, uh, has dangerous consequences for the viability of human freedom. And at this point, Anders introduces the category of the soul, in effect. Uh, no, he says, it's been presumed that all these problems notwithstanding, there's still something like a soul or an agent or a self or an ego which abides through all of this and which ultimately gives us the possibility of transcendence. He, though, is anxious as to whether or not this is the case. Are we even alienated anymore, he says. Maybe to continue to talk about alienation is to fail to grasp that we have already been so effectively hijacked by the system that we are reduced to mere appendages of its operation. That we are just soulless accessories to image commodity production. That the constitution of our identity is a function of these processes. That there is no excuse me, residue of soul left to alienate. It's a dark little section there, right? And I'm happy to say that I demur from Gunther Anders on this point. However much I appreciate the gravity of his counsel, right? Because the reality is that forgetting is a live possibility.